Hello, students. Welcome to the class of Protoplast Culture and Fusion, which you are studying under the plant cell and tissue culture. The background picture, what you are observing, is the protoplast. Protoplasts are single cells with their cell walls removed, exposing the plasma lamella. The cell wall of a plant is very rigid. When the cell wall is removed, then there will be free flow of material from the cytoplasm. So, in other words, you can say that the cell wall provides strength, which also in a way restricts the inflow and outflow of material from the cytoplasm. Protoplasts, they have a tendency to fuse. It is irrespective of the species. In case of usual fusion, what we do is we go for crossbreeding. And you always do not get a positive result in the crossbreeding. This is because of certain restriction. And what are the restriction? The restriction is the pre and post fertilization barrier between the two different plants. But here in the protoplast fusion, both the cells are naked. So it won't realize what plant species it just fused with. So this is one of the advantages of using the protoplast culture. Students, I want to inform you an interesting research where Nicotina plant protoplast was fused with the mouse cell. So it is plant fusing with the animal cell. And when this was introduced into the plant, that is, the mouse cells were introduced in the Nicotina plant, it was observed that the leaves of the plant was able to produce immunoglobulin G. And this is one of the interesting research which went on, wherein we can see that two different genera, one is the plant and another is the animal, getting fused. Now the next question is, how can I bring about fusion? Somatic hybridization. Somatic fusion, also called protoplast fusion, is a type of genetic modification in plants by which two distinct species of plants are fused together to form a new hybrid plant with the characteristic of both, and this is called as somatic hybrid. Here is a brief flow chart. How can we go about somatic hybridization technique? First is the isolation of the protoplast, fusion of the protoplast of decided species or varieties. That is, before you go for the isolation of the protoplast, you have to choose the plant genotype which is healthy and what you want the decided product to be. The third step is the identification and selection of somatic hybrid cells. We go for the selection because it is very important for us to see that the two plants protoplasts fuse to form somatic hybrid. Only when they fused we can proceed the step further. So culture the hybrid cells and then regenerate the plants. And whatever the plant you obtain, it is the hybrid plant. That is two different species or of varieties. So the first important point here what it becomes is after you have chosen the plant, you have to isolate the protoplasm. There are two methods, mechanical and enzymatic method. So first you choose an explant, a shoot, leaves, all should be fresh and healthy because these leaves will have more vacuoles. So it becomes simple. Why it is simple? Because you can cut the healthy leaf into very thin slices with the help of razors. When we cut, there is a chance we may cut the plant membrane. So there lies the problem. So in mechanical method, what we do is the plant tissue, the healthy plant tissue, after it has been removed from the plant, that is the explant, we put them into a solution known as plasmolysis. That is, you put the cell in a hypertonic solution. So when you put the cells in the hypertonic solution, what happens? They will shrink. So you can change the osmotic pressure by adding osmoticums such that your cell membrane contracts. So you can cut the cell wall easily and releasing the protoplasm. So now you need to change the osmotic pressure. You have to bring from the hypertonic solution to the normal solution. So this cannot be done suddenly. When you do it suddenly, when you bring about the changes of plasmolysis immediately, what happens will there is chances that your cells will burst. So let me draw the picture and show to you. So if this is your cell with a cell wall and this is your protoplasm, you put them in the, I told them to, they should be put in the hypertonic solution. When you put them in a hypertonic solution, what happens is this cell membrane shrinks. Okay, so it becomes only this much, it has shrink. So it is easy for you to cut the cell wall, okay, so that you don't damage the membrane of your protoplasm. So once it is cut, what you do, the protoplasm is easily exposed out. It comes out of the cell wall. Now the solution is in the hypertonic solution and you want to change the osmotic solution. Do try to do it immediately because there is always that the cells, the water may enter into the cells and your cells can burst. So next what they do is this is all done by using microscopic observation of the cell. So you're cutting the cell wall with the knife or a sharp razor, release the protoplasm and collect the protoplasm. That is a mechanical method of isolating your protoplasm. The other method is the enzymatic method. Herein you can see here, see this is a small piece of plant tissue and this is the plasmolysis of the cell. Look at the difference between these two. You see, they are swollen. So what happens? Your protoplasm, they shrink and then it becomes easy for you to cut the cell wall. And in the picture C to D, you see that the cutting of the cell wall by a microscalpel or by using razor blade or sharp knife, You do it under the microscope. And E to F is the subsequent stages of liberation of your protoplasm. Since you have made a cut in the cell wall, your protoplasm is free. So this free protoplasm is without the cell wall, hence it is known as the naked cells. And finally, you isolate your protoplast. Now, there are some of the drawbacks in the mechanical method, that is the low yield of protoplasm, laborious and tedious process, low protoplasm viability, that is most of the protoplasm will not be able to survive. To overcome this process, we have another method, and the most commonly used method is the enzymatic method. Here also you choose the healthy plant with the correct type of genotype. If you're choosing any explant, such as the leaf, you sterilize it and you remove the epidermis. So, enzymatic method can be carried in two ways. The first one is you use a pectinase or a macerozyme, which isolates the cell wall by degrading the middle lamella. Once the lamella is degraded, the cells are free. These free cells are treated with cellulase, which releases the protoplast. So the cells are exposed only for a short period to the enzyme. So this is one method wherein you use two enzymes subsequently. Okay, first you use the pectinase and then you use the cellulase. So what is the pectinase doing? It is degrading the middle lamella, the pectin. And then what happens? The cellulase will act on the cellulose, which in turn releases the protoplasm. And your cells should be exposed only for the short period of time. The pH range is 4.5 to 6. This is very important. These enzymes are active at 40 to 50 degrees centigrade. But at this temperature, the explant cannot survive. So, we get poor yield of the protoplasm. Therefore, we compromise on the temperature and keep it around 25 to 30 degrees centigrade for half an hour. So now when the cells lose the cell wall, it becomes sensitive to media. Therefore, you have to use osmoticum of media, and the osmotic pressure also plays an important role. Now, instead of using the two enzyme, that is a two-step enzyme process, we can just go for one-step process wherein we use both pectinase and cellulase together, which can degrade the cell walls and remove the or free the protoplasm, and therefore you can isolate them. So this is more simpler procedure because it is one step procedure, but at the same time you can see that the pH should be 4.5 to 6 and the temperature to 25 to 30 degrees centigrade for a period of half an hour to. Next, we can see that what are the important of enzymatic method. It is used for variety of tissues and organs including leaves, petioles, fruits, roots, hypocotyledons, stems, shoot apexes, embryo, microspores. Mesophyll tissue is the most suitable source as it produces high yield of protoplast and it is easy to perform and more protoplasts are viable. So, depending on the osmotic pressure, the protoplast might burst or might shrink such that it cannot carry out the metabolic activities. So, whether your protoplast shrinks or whether it swells, okay, when it swells, what happened? It will burst. It cannot carry out its metabolic activity. As the osmolarity of the media is gradually decreased, otherwise water will gush in and burst the cell. It can also lead to browning and necrosis. The osmoticum, what we are using, is maintained at 400 to 800 micromoles. Now, what do you mean by this osmoticum? The osmoticums, okay, they maintain the balance. For example, these are sugar molecules such as the sorbitol or mannitol. These are the most commonly used osmoticum, that is, they are used to balance the osmotic pressure when you are isolating the protoplasm either by enzymatic or non-enzymatic method. Calcium chloride is used for the membrane stability. Why? Because your membranes have certain charges, that is, they carry the negative charges. So, they are usually unstable. When you use calcium chloride, it brings about the stability of the membrane by neutralizing the surface charges. Only when you neutralize the surface charges, you can fuse your protoplast. So, now we have studied how to isolate the protoplast by two different methods, mechanical method and enzymatic method. When you compare the first and the second one is the best method. An enzymatic method is also of two types, that is one step reaction and another is the two-step reaction. So, whatever may be the steps, okay, usually we use the macrozyme, which is mostly contains the pectinase and then cellulase, otherwise a combination of the macrozymes and the cellulase at a temperature of 25 to 30 degrees centigrade and an incubation period for half an hour to 20 hours. So we saw some of the importance of the enzymatic method and we also told that the most common used osmoticum are the sugars at a concentration of 400 to 800 micromole. Sorbitol or mannitol is the most commonly used osmoticum. Why are they used is they are used to balance the osmotic pressure when you are isolating the protoplast. You can also use calcium chloride, but they are not the osmoticum. Okay, calcium chloride is used for the membrane stability. Whatever the protoplast you have isolated, they are negatively charged, and because of this, they can repel. The two protoplasts can repel from each other. So, in order to stabilize that charge, you use the calcium chloride because it will neutralize the charges and it can bring the fusion of the two protoplasts. Now, protoplast fusion and somatic hybridization. Why do we go for protoplast fusion and somatic hybridization? The entire topic of plant cell and tissue culture, whatever we have studied, we told that we are going to do it in vitro. And the main purpose is to see that we have a better variety of crop plant or even the ornamental plant which gives high yield and good nutritional value. And also, you know that the conventional method of breeding is not always successful because of the pre and post fertilization barriers. But these drawbacks can be overcome by using the protoplast fusion and somatic hybridization. So, the protoplast fusion can overcome sexual incompatibility and obtaining somatic hybrids. Hybrids means of two different species coming together. Fusion of somatic cells and production of hybrids is known as somatic cell fusion or somatic hybridization. Fusion by treatment of sodium nitrate, high calcium, and polyethylene glycol. So, how are we going to bring the fusion between the two protoplasts is that we are going to treat them with chemicals such as sodium nitrate, high concentration of calcium, and polyethylene glycol. As I put a flow chart in the earlier slide, here also you can see that simple procedures what we use: isolation of the protoplast, induction of membrane fusion, that is once you have isolated the protoplast they have to fuse. So mixing of the cytoplasm and the organelles, then formation of synkaryons. Synkaryons means a cell nucleus is formed by the fusion of two pre-existing nuclei. Okay, so a cell nucleus is formed. Okay, a cell nucleus is formed by the fusion of two pre-existing nuclei. From the two pre-existing nuclei, you get one nucleus that is known as synkaryons. Then selection of the fusion products, you have to select which are the protoplasts which are fused, and then you have to go for the regeneration. And you can also use molecular and biochemical markers for characterization of the fused protoplast and then go for regeneration of the plant. Now coming to the factors affecting the protoplast culture. After I have isolated the protoplast, I have to keep in mind what are the factors that is affecting the protoplast culture. The first one is the growth regulators. So, we have studied various type of growth regulators in our starting classes. A combination of auxin and cytokinin stimulates growth and division of the cells. Similar combination for cells and protoplast culture can be used. That is, whatever combination of auxin and cytokine you're using for a cell, the same combination can be used for protoplast culture. However, after few division, the combination must be revised due to the fact that the phytohormone requirement for protoplast and the cell derived from it might change. Initially, you can use the same auxin and cytokine combination, but later on, there may be all chances that you have to revise the whatever the phytohormones is required for the protoplast and the cells derived from it, because it may require a different combination of auxin and the cytokinin. Environmental factors. High light intensity inhibits the division. Therefore, whenever we do the protoplast culture, we usually prefer the dark or either the dim light, but preferably dark. And I said earlier, your pH should be in the range of 4 to 6 and the temperature is 24 to 26 degree centigrade. Heat treatment and electrical impulse can improve the division in the protoplast culture. What should be the density of your protoplast? So, the protoplasts are mixed in equal proportion, attaining a density of 5 into 10 to the power 4 protoplasts per ml, or as written mentioned here as 0.5 to 2 into 10 to the power 5 protoplasts per ml. So, whenever a protoplast culture is done, we should know how many protoplasts per unit volume are kept and what is the protoplast density. Protoplast, once in the culture, produces substances which promote the growth as well as those which inhibit growth. So, we have to balance and look for the good fusion as well as good growth. Thereafter, we use hemocytometer to measure the protoplast density. We usually use liquid media on a shaker for protoplast of many species fail to divide. Why they fail to divide? They fail to divide when we start growing them in semi-solid media. That is why we go prefer for liquid media. We have to maintain the osmoticum of the media so the cell does not lose any water. Incubate the protoplasts in dark initially as they lack the cell wall. A high light intensity inhibits the cell division. That is why we already mentioned that we should go for the dark and we have to preferably prefer liquid media because the protoplast fail to divide on a semi-solid media. So these are the conditions which you have to keep in mind while you are isolating the protoplast culture. So next, what is the step? Next is the protoplast fusion and somatic hybridization. If you want to fuse the protoplast, we increase the concentration of ammonium nitrate and polyethylene glycol, or we can use even electric stimulus. Why are we using these chemicals and electric stimulus is to see that we bring together two different protoplasts and hybrid them together. Okay, so I have isolated the protoplast. These are two different protoplasts. I have to fuse them, right? So, how can I bring about the fusion? I can bring about the fusion by the chemical treatment or by the electrical treatment. So, some of the chemicals what is used is the ammonium nitrate, polyethylene glycol. So, these bring the two protoplast hybrids together. Now, what is the function of PEG? The PEG or polyethylene glycol binds to the calcium in the fusion mixture, which may form a bridge between the PEG chain and the negatively polarized group of the membrane. We told that the membranes are usually negatively charged and we have to neutralize this charge, otherwise they will not fuse. That is why we are using calcium chloride. So what happens is your PEG and your calcium chloride are added into the fusion mixture and they form a bridge between the PEG chain and the negatively charged polarized group of the membrane. So this negative charge is due to the intramembraneous phosphate group which is present in the protoplast membrane. What I mean to tell is why the protoplasts carry the negative charge. The negative charge is due to the intramembrane phosphate groups that are present. Now, once this bridge is formed and your charges are neutralized, this favors the agglutination of two or more protoplasts. So, now what happens? These protoplasts, okay, they come close to each other and they form an agglutination because the charge is removed and a bridge is formed between the PEG and the calcium. So the main function of the calcium ion causes the reduction in the zeta potential, that is the charge of the plasma membrane. The cytoplasmic channels are formed where they are adhered closely and gradually expand and fusion of the cytoplasm occurs and start flowing from one protoplast to the other. So now what happens? They have all agglutinated, right? There are cytoplasmic channels are formed where between the protoplasm, these protoplasts are adhered to each other. Okay, they are attached to each other. So we use the word they are adhered closely, and then what happens? Gradually they expand and they start to fuse. So the fusion of cytoplasma occurs and the protoplasm occurs, and now what happens? The cytoplasm of this protoplast and this protoplast can move from one another. So this is how we are bringing about the protoplast fusion and somatic hybridization. So the process of the protoplast fusion requires direct contact between the membrane surface and integration of the membranes of the two different cells. The adhesion of the protoplast depends on the charge. This charge can be significantly reduced by the calcium ions. After establishment of the protoplast contact, the membrane fusion results in the structural modification, and this can be enhanced by fusogenic agent. What is your fusogenic agent? Your fusogenic agents are your ammonium nitrate, polyethylene glycol, or even the calcium chloride. Okay, these are all your fusogenic agent which helps to fuse the two protoplasts. It is a non-specific event and can be induced between any two protoplast type, either between dicot, monocot, dicot, plant, insect, haplot, diploid type. Any of the protoplasts you can bring about the fusion. So that is why it is called as non-specific. So you have to remember the names of these chemicals or the fusogenic agents which are bringing about the protoplast adherence and their fusion. So this is what I told you about the fusion procedure. Protoplasts are mixed in equal proportion, attaining a density of 5 into 10 to the power 4 protoplasts per ml. This you can do it by cell counting method by using the hemocytometer, and there are also other easier method also. So we use chemical and physical agents are used to bring the fusion. These include your sodium nitrate, PEG of different molecular weight, that is polyethylene glycol of different molecular weight. We can use even dextran, gelatin, etc. High calcium concentration, electric charge, and pH have very important effect on the bringing the protoplast fusion. Isolated protoplasts are suspended in the aggregation of the mixture. Which are the mixture? See here, 5.5% of your sodium nitrate, 20 to 40% of polyethylene glycol in 10% sucrose solution. What is your sucrose? Sucrose is your osmoticum. It is kept at 35 degrees centigrade for 5 minutes, and then it is centrifuged at 200 for 5 minutes to obtain the pellet. Then they transfer to water bath at 30 degrees centigrade for 30 minutes for the protoplast to fuse. So what did I do? I isolated the protoplast and I then introduced them into a solution, and that solution contained all these fusogens, and then I kept them at 35 degrees centigrade for 5 minutes, and then I centrifuged them. When I centrifuge them, I will obtain the supernatant and the pellet. I don't want the pellet. I want the supernatant where is my protoplast present. And then it is transferred to a water bath at 30 degree for 30 minutes for the protoplast fusion to occur. The protoplasts are then washed and transferred to a liquid media or plated. The fusion and fusion products are observed under the microscope. So, after I have kept it in the water bath for 30 degrees centigrade for 30 minutes, you wash the protoplast and transfer into the liquid media or even in a selection media, and then you observe it under the microscope to see whether the fusions of the two different protoplasts has occurred, and if it is occurred, your experiment is successful. You have to select only those protoplasts which are fused. So what type of callus or cell culture I have to use if I require a protoplast? We usually go for actively growing culture in the exponential phase or the log phase. So, you know this, okay? So, if this is your graph, this is your lag, and this is your log phase. This is what we require. And what is the condition which are used for optimization? The enzyme concentration, that is the macerozyme, which contains pectinase, and the cellulase, concentration of the osmoticum, that is your sorbitol or mannitol or your sucrose solution. So what is the function of this osmoticum? Any substance that acts to supplement osmotic pressure in the plant or a culture of plant cell. Then incubation period, types of tissue. Because I told you that if the osmotic pressure is not balanced, it can either shrink your cells or it can burst your cells. So the enzymes what you use are the macerozyme, cellulase, or you can use even hemicellulase, pectinase, and decellerase. And the enzyme solution pH is 5.5. You use sorbitol, mannitol, and calcium chloride for membrane stability. And the genotype and environment factors also affect the protoplast isolation. That is genotypically how healthy and what type of genotype they are carrying. Coming to the factors affecting your protoplast culture, what are the nutritional requirements? The nutritional requirement is similar to those for cells and callus culture, what we use. Modification can be done for better survival and colony formation. The presence of high ammonium concentration can be toxic to your protoplast. Now, this is very interesting. When you studied about the nutritional factors required for a cell, we studied that we provide the nitrogen source. Nitrogen is a gas, so how we are going to provide it in the form of ammonium nitrate. And here also we told that we are going to use sodium nitrate. But the presence of high ammonium concentration can be toxic to your protoplast. So you have to be very careful with that because high ammonium concentration can be toxic. Actually, we were telling that nitrate and ammonia are nitrogen sources for plant cell and easy assimilation is ammonia. That is for easy absorption is the word what you have to use is assimilation is the ammonia. And when you're using nitrate also, once it gets assimilated into the plant, it is converted into ammonia ions. So direct ammonia can be toxic in the plant because ammonium assimilation is found to be related to the release of proton ions, which results in the acidification of the medium. That is why we are not supposed to use very high concentration of the ammonia because it releases the protons and this can increase the acidification of your media, making toxic to your cells. So usually we require carbon, nitrogen, vitamins, plant growth regulators are manipulated to facilitate the growth and the division. The media for callus culture normally support the protoplast culture also. So this is the picture. You can see two different protoplasts, how they are getting fused by the various procedure what we studied. So we told that the PEG manipulates the permeability of the cell membrane. Calcium and sodium ions brings about the fusion. So PEG is, you have to remember the full form. What is it? It is the polyethylene glycol. It increases the changing the permeability of the membrane to take up the extracellular membrane. Only when your cells become permeable, which is brought about by your PEG, then only it can take up the extracellular materials which are present. And that is why we told that the PEG calcium ion bridge is being formed. Now students, protoplast fusion can be brought about by spontaneous or by the induced. The spontaneous fusion is by mechanical fusion, that is it is mechanically induced, and then we have the induced fusion. We use hemofusion, that is the fusion is brought about by chemical agent, and electrofusion, the fusion which is induced by the electric current. So spontaneous fusion You can look into the definition of this. Protoplasts during isolation often fuse spontaneously. Okay, we told this in the starting of a slide itself that they have the tendency to fuse with each other irrespective of the species. Okay, this is because they don't have a cell wall, and this phenomenon is called as a spontaneous fusion. During the enzyme treatment, protoplasts from adjoining cells fuse through the plasmodesmata to form multinucleate protoplast. So protoplasts fuse spontaneously during isolation process mainly due to physical contact. So there is a physical contact between the two or more protoplasts which enhances the fusion. So how the cells fuse through the plasmodesmata to form multinucleate protoplast. I shall show you the picture of this plasmodesmata in the next. So you can bring about interspecific fusion or intrageneric, but intrageneric have no importance. Okay, intraspecific means this of same species, so they produce homokaryons having the same nucleus. Induced fusion is another method. Herein we use chemofusion, that is, we are going to use chemicals as a fusogens. The type of fusogens are we are going to use is the polyethylene glycol. Polyethylene glycol plus protoplast is kept at room temperature for 40 minutes and it is rocked. Then you elute the PEG by adding protoplast culture centrifuge. By centrifuging, you'll make it free from the fusogen. Otherwise, you can add sodium nitrate, clean the protoplast with sucrose by addition of 0.25 molar sodium nitrate plus the protoplast and go for centrifugation. Along with this, calcium ions can be added, zero point 0.4 molar mannitol and 0.05 molar calcium chloride at a pH 10 and temperature of 37 degrees centigrade can be used, and also polyvinyl alcohol can also be used. So these are all chemicals which can bring about protoplast fusion, and hence it is called as induced fusion. So these chemicals are termed as fusogens. So the fusion of the freely isolated protoplast from different sources with the help of fusing chemical agent is known as induced fusion. Normally, isolated protoplasts do not fuse with each other because of the surface of the isolated protoplast carries negative charge at all. Okay, because of the negative charge which is present on the protoplast, the tendency of fusion is very narrow, and thus therefore we are adding this fusogens such as this calcium chloride which can neutralize the charges and the PEG which can increase the permeability, and we are using so many osmoticums to see that the two different types of protoplasts get fused. Thus, there is a strong tendency in the protoplast to get attracted once the negative charge is removed. Another method of induced fusion is mechanical fusion. In mechanical fusion, what you do is you are pushing the two protoplasts together. Here we do not use any fusagen. We are not going to use any chemical. While doing this, when you're pushing the two protoplasts, what happens is the protoplast, there are chances that it gets injured. And you do the entire process under the microscope by using micromanipulator and perfusion micropipette. You can see this person doing the mechanical fusion by seeing. You can see that the things are kept in the under the microscope, which is connected to the uh, monitor, and through this monitor, using this, okay, the micro manipulator and the micropipette, he is trying to fuse two different protoplasts, but this may lead to the injury of the protoplast if it not done carefully. The next method is the electrofusion method. Of all the methods, electrofusion method is one of the best methods to be used. Herein, the electrofusion apparatus involves two steps. First, one is the aligning of the protoplast, and the second step is the fusing your protoplast. First, you align them and then you fuse your protoplast. For this method, two glass capillary microelectrodes. Okay, here you can see the microelectrodes are placed in contact with the protoplast. These are all your protoplasts. Apply one or more pulses of low voltage. First, you apply low voltage. Okay, that is a 10 kilowatt or 10 kilovolt per meter. DC current, that is the direct current, at an interval of half to 2 seconds. The electric field gives rise to dielectrophoretic dipole generation. This leads to the formation of chain arrangement of protoplasts. They appear like pearls, okay, depending on the density. Then apply high voltage electric impulse of 100 kilovolt per meter for few, that is again half to 2 seconds. It results in the breakdown of the cell membrane, resulting in the fusion of the cell membrane of the protoplast, and it is kept undisturbed for 30 minutes or so. It attains the normal spherical form, so large heterokaryons is favored. This is the most reliable technique than the chemical method. Once again, I shall explain the electrofusion method. This involves two steps. The electrofusion apparatus, which involves two steps, are: first one is the aligning of the protoplast, and in second step you are going to fuse the protoplast. So what you require is two glass capillary electrode are placed in contact with the protoplast. This is your electrodes and they are placed in contact with your protoplast, and you are supplying the electric charges. What type of electric pulse you supply? Direct current. First, what is the current? You apply the low voltage, that is 10 kilovolts DC current is applied at particular interval. When you do so, the electric field gives rise to dielectrophoretic dipole generation is formed. This dipole movement, this leads to the formation of chain arrangement, okay, of your protoplast depending on the density. Look here how the protoplasts appear like chains, okay. After that, what you have to do is apply high voltage electric impulse of 100 kilovolt per meter. That is for few seconds to two half second to 2 second you can apply, and this results in the breakdown of the cell wall, and then the cell membrane will start fusing. To fuse, so you have to keep it in the undisturbed for 30 minutes or so that it can attain the normal spherical form, so such that the large heterokaryons are favored. Heterokaryons means nucleus of two different plants. This is a most reliable technique than the chemical method, because the electrofusion will bring two protoplasts from diverse sources of plant, that is from different plant species, and make them to fuse. This results in the diverse protoplast, and hence it is called as heterokaryons. So here you can see that what are the types of protoplast one can be produced. In this picture, you can see here the first, we have two different protoplast A and protoplast B. These are from two different species. By using the same technique, whatever we have spoken so far, you fuse them. Okay, the protoplast fuse. But what happens is the nucleus of protoplast A is eliminated or it is knocked out. But what happens is, though the nucleus is of one of the protoplasts is being knocked out, the cytoplasm, you see the dotted here, this is different dots and different, they fuse. When such type of phenomena occurs, it is called as cybrids. Okay, the cybrid protoplast is cultured to regenerate the cybrid, then it can be generated into the whole plant. Here what happens, only your cytoplasms fuse and there is only one nucleus. For example, in this picture you can see that only the protoplast B nucleus is present, whereas the protoplasm A is knocked out, and hence it is called as cybrids. That is, the cytoplasm of the two hybrids are being fused. Also, in this picture, you can see that this is the protoplast species A and protoplast species B, and we have added the different fusogen. Whatever the fusogen is required, we add. We can get a combination such as like this. Okay, see here, these are known as homokaryons. Why it is called as homokaryons? This is one cell and this is one another cell. What has happened? The two protoplasts, these two and these two itself is fused. That is protoplast A, two protoplasts of A is fused, two protoplasts of B is fused. So you are having the same nucleus of the same plant species. Hence it is called as homokaryons. But here you see, you are carrying the protoplast of both A and B. Hence it is an heterokaryon. But there can also occur that the protoplast of either A nor B fuse. They remain same as the parent. Okay, these are known as unfused protoplasts. So these are the different types of protoplasts. Sometimes what happens is there can be asymmetrical, in which the nuclear genome of one of the plant may get partially or completely eliminated. Okay, either they can get partially or completely eliminated. So it is called as asymmetrical form. And hybrids we have already spoken about. So these are the different methods or types of protoplast you can get. So this is an example, a pictorial diagram showing that once the protoplast fusion has been formed, you select a genotype with a decided genotype, okay, and that plant should be healthy. You dissect the leaf, cut it into pieces. See, it will be having the cell wall. It is having a large vacuole, okay, and this is the cytoplasm and the nucleus. And inside, what you're seeing a small line, that is the, I mean, a thin line, that is the plasma membrane. So you soak the solution containing the cellulase, sugars, and salts. Then what you do is you wash to centrifuge to remove the debris. Okay, so first I taken the leaf, I cut it into small pieces. Okay, by using osmoticum. Okay, so you'll be having a large cell wall, you have the nucleus, you have the plasma lamella. I want to remove the cell wall. So what will I do? I'll soak it in a solution containing the, preferably we go for the enzyme technology by using macroscience and the cellulase. We use the different types of salts and sugars, okay, making it hypertonic. Wash and centrifuge will remove the debris. See, we are centrifuging it. All the cell wall and the debris will settle down. Okay, it will sediment, whereas your protoplast will float. And this is my protoplast. After that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer the colonies into a selection media for 2 to 3 weeks. So this is my protoplast, and this is the filter paper. Below is the agar with the nutrients, and below this agar we find the feeder or the nerve cells which are embedded in the agar. So I take a Petri plate. That Petri plate will be having agar with the nutrients, and it has feeder cells or the nerve cells. I have already explained to you all what are nerve cells are. I shall repeat it again. Nerve cells means the protoplast isolation involves special cells, okay, and there is disconnection of the plasmodesmata. So you have the cells all which are aligned in this one by one because of the plasmodesmata, and there is changes in the tissues when you are isolating the protoplast. The nutrient medium may not be able to provide extra nutrients required for the protoplast development. So we are providing nutrient, but that nutrient will not be sufficient for the protoplast development. Therefore, we are going to use the nerve cell, that is a plant cell, okay, which is having all the nutrition, and it will provide the food for your protoplast and helps the cells and provide the stability of the cell. So it is going to provide you, provide a protoplast with the food, it nurtures it, and it provides the stability of the protoplast. So I have the feeder cells which is embedded in the agar. Agar also carries nutrients onto which there is a filter paper. On that we place a protoplast and transfer the colonies after 2 to 3 weeks. Now you can see here, transfer, after this has been done, you transfer the colonies after 2 to 3 weeks, you can develop the shoot. Agar media high in cytokinin and low in auxin. This favors the shoot development, and later on transfer into the root inducing media after 2 to 4 weeks. That is the media with no cytokinin, and it contains a low amount of auxin for the formation of the shoot. Then transferred to the soil after 3 weeks, and then you can regenerate the plant. That is, you know all the procedures, how you have to keep it in the greenhouse, do the field trial, and then commercialize it. So there are various advantages of the somatic hybridization. Why means it involves production of novel interspecific, that is different species and even different generic hybrids. For example, pomato. It is a fusion of potato and tomato. Production of fertile diploids and polyploidy from sexually sterile haploids, triploids and aneuploids. So what are these? These are actually plants which are having very important characteristic features, but whatever they produce, they are sterile. So if they are sterile by sexual reproduction, I cannot produce them if I want another set of plant. Therefore, by using this technique, I can go ahead with it. Transfer gene for disease resistance, abiotic stress resistance, and all other quality. That is, if I know that, that is why we're telling starting only you have to choose what type of genotype of plant you want. Suppose say I want a disease resistant plant, I have to choose that plant and isolate the protoplast of that. And if my plant B also I want to convert it into disease resistant, I shall fuse these two A and B to get the disease resistant variety. But I have to see that there is a fusion and selection so that I get the proper decided trait. Production of heterozygous lines in single species which cannot be propagated by vegetative means. Studies on the fate of plasma genes. Production of unique hybrid of nucleus and cytoplasm. It is an excellent system to obtain single cells. Single cell cloning is facilitated. Somatic cell fusion is facilitated. Complete plant of single cell origin can be obtained. Genetic transformation is facilitated through DNA and organelle uptake. A model system to study new cell wall formation facilitates the isolation of cell organelles and chromosomes. So these are the various application of using the protoplast or somatic hybridization. Usually, when you when we have closely related parents, we always look for resistance in some species or in genera, and we try to bring about crossing over. Right? That is what usually in the traditional and conventional methods we do. If we find that some plant is disease resistant or it is having any other unique trait, we try to bring those two plants together, okay, and we try to cross it. But it is not possible to cross it because of the pre and post fertilization barriers, because your plant A is different and your plant B is different. They are genetically different and there is no compatibility. Hence, there is fertilization barrier. What do you mean by pre-fertilization barriers? Means when the pollen grains of unrelated species fail to grow on the stigma of another species, so fertilization can never happen. The in other words, you cannot overcome the barriers, or it is able to uh, what to say is there is what is called as this fertilization barrier because they are two different species. So if I put the pollen of one plant into the stigma of the another plant also, there will not occur any formation of new plant, or fertilization will not occur because of this pre-fertilization barriers. Or sometimes what happens, they will form the embryo till the embryo stage it reaches. But then what happens? They fail to undergo fertilization. So when they fail to undergo fertilization, it is called as post-fertilization barriers. Hope I've made it clear. So in the natural environment, usually in conventional methods, whenever we want to select two plants, one plant having all good traits, but I want my second plant which is also having some good rate. But suppose say my second plant is not resistant, it is producing very good yield, but it is not resistant to a particular disease. Then what will I do? I want to fuse these two plants, but unfortunately I cannot fuse these two plants because they are incompatibility between them. There is pre or post fertilization barriers. Pre-fertilization barrier is when your pollen of one plant goes and adheres to the stigma of the another plant. There is no fusion occurring. This is called as pre-fertilization. In post-fertilization, what happens is egg is formed, but fertilization itself will not occur. That is the post-fertilization problem. And also, you know that we have been studying about genetic engineering, and you know that through the process of genetic engineering, what we are doing, we are taking the gene of animal, plant, or any other species, okay, microorganisms, and we are mixing it up. And so, what is happening? We have to put that GMO food, genetically modified food label in the food products, whatever we are using. And many people don't prefer this food because it is carrying the gene of something else. Okay, and also now you know that there was lot of what to say controversy surrounding the genetically modified mustard plant or eggplant, wherein the consumer never accepted them. But such type of barriers will not be in the somatic embryos. We are not using any genetic engineering here. We are not taking some genes and putting into a plant or animal. Okay, so there are no such question, and can they can be easily released into the environment. And that is what I spoke about, protoplast fusion. Okay, we can bring about the protoplast fusion and somatic hybridization also by um, either you can go for a pure variety as I mentioned earlier. Otherwise, if you want to transfer the gene also, it is possible. DNA of chloroplast, virus, bacteria. How is this done? The cell membranes are semi-solid structure as per the fluid mosaic model. Fluidity of the membrane is the physiological characteristics. That is, we know that the membranes are possess the mosaic model fluidity. What you do is you create a transist pore. Transist means a temporary pore in the bilayer portion, and then make the membrane permeable. Okay, the formation of the pores and repair of the membrane pore facilitate the interaction of the nucleic acid molecules into the cytoplasm. So what happens is if I have a protoplast and I can create a transist pore, a hole into it, whatever material I want to add, whether I want to add a DNA from the chloroplast or virus or bacteria nuclei, I can add through the pores of that protoplast. And since it is a transit pore, it is not a permanent, it is a temporary pore, then it will automatically seals off the formation of the pores and repair of the membrane of the pores. And this facilitates the interactions of the nucleic acid molecules in the cytoplasm and the nucleus. The reversible non-destructive permeabilization of membrane can be achieved by chemical treatment for short duration by electric or the PEG treatment. The same what we spoke about this. So if you want to introduce a new DNA also, you can go for it. If I don't want to proceed with the introduction of other genes, so also it is possible. That is why it is can be widely used. Protoplast fusion or somatic hybridization can be widely used because if you don't want to introduce any foreign genes from the virus or bacteria or from some other animals, we need not use it. So this is the picture I was telling, that this is a plasmodesmata. See, this is the cell, two different cells, but they are interconnected by the plasmodesmata. This is the same picture, whatever we explained now. Okay, you take the plant, leaf, remove the epidermis, and this is the peeled leaf. You put them, you plasmolyze the cells, okay, in a hypertonic solution so that you can cut the cell wall. Then you put it into the enzymes. The cell wall digestion occurs and it is releases the protoplast. You centrifuge it, your protoplast floats and the debris settle down. You extract your protoplast and put it into a selection plating media. I too showed you that nerve cells, agar, nutrient, filter paper, and see to that which under the microscope wherever the fusion has occurred, you select such cells, or you can use even biological or chemical markers which indicates that the fusion has occurred. You can use those markers also. After that, after the fusion has occurred, then you have to develop the cell wall, okay, regeneration of the cell wall. And then you can see that we can develop into a callus which will undergo differentiation, and young plantlet is produced, and then it will produce into a whole plantlet. So with this we conclude our class on protoplast fusion. I hope you all have understood it. It is a simple techniques wherein you have to remember most of the chemical agents what we are using, the temperature, the light, the pH, what are the different type of osmoticums we are using, the different types of chemicals what we are using, the enzymes we are using, mechanical method, spontaneous fusion, induced fusion. Then we spoke about chemical in induced fusion. We spoke about the chemical fusion, electrofusion. Electrofusion is the most accepted one, and we also saw the application part of these. With this, we conclude a chapter on the protoplast fusion. Thank you for your patience. We can leave the class now.